All right, so I guess we can get started. And I'd like to welcome everybody to the 2Rivers Festival. We've been working hard this year to create an online version of the festival, and we have 39 of our 40 events to share with you. It looks like this is going to be another excellent presentation. As you know, the 2Rivers Festival is a program of Wellington Water Watchers, and the idea behind it is that we protect what we love. We partner with different groups in the area who take us on all kinds of adventures that bring us close to our beautiful rivers. And I'd like to thank all 24 of our advertisers, and in particular our festival sponsor, the Guelph Outdoor School, for making the festival possible. Today we have Nicole Hewitt, a talented young local artist who is going to show us how to create watercolors from plants that grow near the rivers and all around us. So I'm going to turn it over to you now, Nicole.
Okay. So we're going to start with, I'm going to go through a slideshow of talking a little bit about the difference between dye and ink, and then sort of around process and moving through into how to, it's actually very, very simple, how to take plants and turn them into colors. And then we can have a Q&A if anyone has questions. So I'm going to start, I'm going to move this over here. I'm going to start a screen share. Is that all right, Beth?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. And then I do this. And then play. So let me know, can you see the screen share?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so what you're looking at is some fabric that I dyed about 5 years ago when I lived in Victoria. And one of them, the very blue one, is indigo. So what I'm kind of trying to show here is that there's some plants that create lasting color that you can fix into things like fabric. They last a lot longer. There's a lot of plants that create something called fugitive colors. The yellow one at the top is turmeric, and then the other one is avocado. And they actually lasted pretty well. Like you can see how the avocado is like a nice pink color. So it's the avocado. You can use the skins or the pits. And then the turmeric, when you first do it, it's very bright fluorescent yellow, or you can get it to be a really deep dark yellow, but it will fade over time. So that's just to kind of give you an idea of those. This was a piece of fabric that I dyed with black beans. They make the most beautiful blue, but it doesn't last for very long. So what I started to play around with, because I really like natural dyes, but as an artist, I wanted to work with natural materials that I didn't have to worry about necessarily fading that easily or wear and tear of clothes. So I got into ink making. This is a picture of all I really use when I'm doing it for paper is an old pot that I specifically only ever use for making ink or dye. I don't use anything that I would use for cooking, and same an old wooden spoon that I only use for this. You don't want to mix anything used for cooking with making color. Now, there's a book called Make Ink by Jason Logan. He's someone who started the Toronto Ink Company, and he's been on, if you look it up, I can also send you links, but it's pretty well known at this point. He goes through a whole bunch of different things you can use to make ink, and he suggests using a glass funnel with a coffee filter. And what he's doing is he's creating something that can be bottled and then last for a longer time. So what I'm going to talk about more today is something that's a little bit less professional, I guess. It's just more for fun. So I don't tend to use, I don't sell the ink. And I usually just make one batch and then I paint with it, and then I don't use the rest of it. I don't try to preserve it because it can go moldy because of moisture. The water likes to go moldy. So if you did want to bottle it and preserve it, you need something called gum arabic, and cloves can also help. but I'm gonna keep it really, really simple, and we're just gonna use a pot and a spoon, some plants, and water, and yeah. Okay, so this one is an example of what happens when I took black walnuts and I put them in the pot. I boiled them for, like, you don't have to do it for very long. You can do it for kind of, you boil it until you get color, basically. So it can be an hour, it might be less, depends on the plant. The black walnut is really well known for making color really easily. So this, you can also use black walnut for dyeing clothes. It's not a fugitive color like some of the other ones. And black walnuts are everywhere in the fall. You can find them falling down. And actually, when you see them stain on the sidewalks, that's like they make color really easily. Whoops, it's not letting me go to the next. Hold on here. Okay. Where's my thing? Oh, okay. Okay, so this one is like, you can see the black walnut at the top, and then as you go to the bottom, that's what happened when I took some lilacs. And I did, hold on, I'm gonna stick. Okay, and then these are just some ink that I did from tea. And this picture is actually from about 5 or 6 years ago. So you can see there's a bit of longevity. It kind of looks like there might be some kind of mold, but it's not. It's just to give you an idea that when it's on paper, you have a lot longer lifespan of the image. But it's called living color. So that's the description that a lot of people use with it. It's something that it can change over time. I've also been using cocoa husks to make ink and paint, and I've been finding that they have really good longevity. I don't find it changes a lot. Don't put it right in the sun if you want it to last for like a long time. But yeah, so you can use all kinds of tea. Hibiscus tea makes really nice color as well. So when we're talking about, like, if you want to go out and forage a bit, also only take what you need. Don't take very much. You don't need that much to make the kind of color that I'm talking about. If you were to do something where you wanted to capture a lot of flavor, for example, like lilacs, you need to generally use quite a few. However, I did some experiments when the lilacs were out a couple weeks ago. They're still out a bit, but I didn't use very many. And I soaked them in oat milk overnight, and then I blended that with some melted chocolate, and it made, like, lilacs are edible and they're really delicious. But again, you don't want to, like, over forage anything unless it's invasive, I guess, and then you might want to, like, help take it out a little bit more. So the other thing I did with the lilacs, it makes a similar color to these, and it's like a light, it can be like kind of a light brown or yellow, and it's basically, so what I did, I'll see if I can, these are more tea ones. Okay, and then these are little cards that I made with the walnut ink. As an idea, just for something fun, if you want to make greeting cards or something like that, you can just play with it and then make it into cards. And cards are something that people might keep around for a while, but they might not keep around for that long, so the longevity isn't as much an issue. Okay, I don't know where my lilac one went, and it's only letting me hit the button. But you know what lilacs look like. So I put lilacs in the pot. After I made them after I did food with them, I soaked them, and then I took them out. And then others you can have maybe in a vase. You can enjoy their smell once they're wilting. Put them in a pot with some water, boil them for a while. And then what I did was I took it all outside with a big piece of paper, and I let my 3-year-old gave her a paintbrush, and she just, like, painted with the lilac water ink and had a lot of fun. So it was really neat for her to get to see how to use a brush and how to make the color move around. And then what we can do after, say, she's done doing that, is cut it up, make it into cards, and use them for greeting cards and things like that, or little notes. So there's a couple of ideas that you can do with that. So some other plants that can be interesting to work with are the yellow iris. When we walk down the street under the walking bridge right at the river at the base, there's a whole bunch of yellow iris, and they are invasive. it can be a problem. And so going and like foraging for some of those is okay. And you can take those and again, just take the plant matter. You can experiment. So if you want to just try the blooms, you can try that. If you want to have them as in a vase for a while and enjoy them in your house and then take them and make them into color, you can play around with that. Let's see. So this is a picture I found of what kind of colors you can get from iris. This one was actually a purple iris that the person used. So it created like different kinds of greens depending on how long you let it. One of them, they let it steep in the sun. So you also don't have to use energy. You don't have to use your stove if you don't want to. You can go and you can put it in the water, put the plant matter in the water, and then put it out in the sun. And it like anything, of course, the water will evaporate a bit, but as it evaporates down, it like concentrates the color. So the longer you have it with some kind of heat source or evaporating source kind of thing, it'll make like a more concentrated, stronger color. So it just takes some time. And then the other one that I found, there are quite a few invasives, and I would say you experiment with whatever you want. Like the leaves might make a different color than you expect. These berries make this kind of color. So this is a buckthorn berry. I'm just going to double check because I'm pretty sure that's a buckthorn berry. So I had a couple of different berries. Yeah, buckthorn berry. But again, say you have some berries that you bought at the store or at the market and they're going off and you don't know what to do with them. You don't want to just throw them out. You can take them and put them in a pot with some water and, heat them up, cook them for a while, and then you can paint with them. So it's just kind of another way to extend food or use plants. And buckthorn berries are also invasive, and they also can be a problem around rivers. I have a link and it's also easy to Google it, for finding invasives and identifying plants. The other thing, I've done a lot of research around edibles and foraging and all that kind of stuff. Just always be careful to know what you're working with, because the plants, obviously like poison ivy, for example, if you touch it, you can have a skin reaction. There's other plants you don't want to touch, giant hogweed. There's a few plants that can be really, really dangerous. So if you wanted to go foraging around rivers, just make sure you are prepared to kind of know exactly what you're looking for. I would probably wear gloves, and like bugs can be a problem as well, depending on where you are, like ticks and mosquitoes. So just kind of be prepared to go and do that kind of thing. In the city, it's a little bit different. There's like less vegetation in some areas, so you can find some of these plants. One of the plants that I recently found out about, I thought was phlox, but it's Dame's rocket. So there's two different kinds of flowers. The phlox is native to North America, and it has 5 petals. Both of the flowers are edible. Not all phlox is edible, just the perennials. So the 5-petaled one comes later in the summer. The Dame's rocket has 4 petals, and it's also edible. It tastes like honey. But again, both of these types of flowers, you probably want to go for the take over and cause a lot of problems, and then you can use it for maybe infusing in water. That's the other thing you can do with lilacs, is you soak them in water overnight, and then the water tastes fantastic. But you can use it then for after you've used the plant matter for making some kind of food, or you've enjoyed it in your house, you can make it into color. So if we were going to be doing this outside at Riverside Park, for example, we would have been foraging around and kind of looking around for different things to make color with. Another point that Jason Logan mentions in his book, Make Ink, is he did like a bunch of parties, like kids parties, where he had the kids go out and they foraged for material, and then they used that material to make color with. One of the kids decided to pick up cigarette butts. So I thought that was really interesting. So, and it made the tobacco, like the cigarettes, made a really interesting color. When you just, I don't think it would smell very nice though. So I haven't actually tried it, but it would be interesting to see if there's some kind of, as you're picking up litter, depending on the type of litter. I don't think I would be cooking plastic, for example, but there's different kinds of things that maybe you'd come across like near rivers or when you're out that would be interesting to try to make color with. Yeah, so that's that. I'm just gonna see, there was one that I don't think I got to show very much. That's the lilacs after they'd been sitting in a vase for a while. That batch I didn't end up using for food, but that kind of just gives you an idea how much. It wasn't very much that I used to make this color at the bottom here. And it doesn't have to be a super strong color. You can use it to like tint a paper that you want to use and maybe do some drawing on top of that. That can be really nice too. So really, you can just get really creative with it. And again, it's like fun for kids. It's a neat activity. They can help you forage and like find the plants. Of course, be careful. And then you can make it into color and let them paint with it. So I think that's, I'm gonna stop the share. Beth, do you see, what do you see? Do you still see my screen or is it gone back to?
Yeah, it's gone back to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we can open it up, if anyone has any questions, then we can do that. Or, yeah. I think if it would have been a longer event as well, if we had been outside, because there would have been the going and gathering the plants. But this is more just giving you an idea of what's possible.
Well, it was really interesting, Nicole, and I'd like to thank you very much for it. You're very knowledgeable, and you've obviously done quite a lot of work with this, and also you seem to know quite a bit about it. You've done a lot of research too.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. I was wondering, I remember you mentioned about some materials that you could use to fix the colors.
Right.
And I think you said something about cloves, and there was another one. What was the other one?
Gum arabic. So
okay, right.
There's a difference between like if you're making a dye for a fabric and if you're making an ink for like paper. With fabric, you want to use something called alum. And there's they're called mordants, and you want to essentially treat the fabric, like cook the fabric in the alum first.
Oh.
And then you rinse that out with cold water, and then you take that fabric that's fixed and you put it in with the whatever you're using to make the color. Now, you can also use salt or you can use vinegar. Those are two other ways to create fixing for the color.
Okay.
With ink. And so this is how I make paint as well.
Mm-hmm.
You use something called gum arabic, which is what's in watercolor paint. So when you go to the store and you buy watercolor paint, it generally will have some kind of pigment. Usually it's synthetic. And then it's mixed with water and gum arabic and probably some other preservatives as well.
Right.
When I make watercolor paint, I use cocoa powder. Usually a powder is easier, like it's a pigment, right?
Right.
So I'll use the pigment and then I mix it with some water, some honey, and some gum arabic, which you can get gum arabic. It's actually a tree resin. I believe it's from somewhere in Africa, but I can't remember that part exactly. But it is a tree resin, and you can buy it at the art store. And then it's a liquid, so you take a little eyedropper and you take it out of the bottle, and you just drop it onto your pigment with the water and the honey, and then you take a palette knife and you mix it all, or a muller, which is the big glass. I have one, but like you use it to like, so that's paint, and that's going to have a different workability, and it's a different opacity than ink. So the ink that we're talking about is like really, 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 really basic, really simple, really easy for anybody to do. And I just use water and plant matter for that. And then same like tea, like if you made a really nice, the tea looks like a really nice color, you can paint with that too. So I did see a question earlier about geraniums. I have not experimented with geraniums. I don't even know if they're edible. I found out that peonies are edible. We have a whole bunch of peonies in our yard right now, and they're supposed to taste like peaches and strawberries, and I think it doesn't taste very nice. So I'm not really sure. I might make ice cream with it or test it out or something. But peonies and roses are supposed to be nice to eat. I don't know about geraniums. That's an interesting one, though. I saw someone type a question. I don't know if it makes sense to take off mute.
Yeah, I was thinking of maybe just, I don't know if other people can unmute themselves, but I can do it myself. And I think I can. I'm trying to anyway. It doesn't seem to be working
Ask to unmute.
except for Arlene.
Yeah, maybe I'll throw a question in here. I'm here. This is Arlene here.
Okay, great.
Hi.
Hi. I'm here with my daughter Ivry, who is constantly playing with what what you're defining as ink. She's constantly like smushing up petals or
Yes.
things that she finds around to make beautiful colors. And she so far has tried to play with putting them in fabrics. And we've also dyed with natural colors before and done the mordant thing. So it never, without that, it doesn't stay in the fabrics. But this is really great because I'm going to encourage her to just paint with those colors.
Yeah. And heat, like if you cook it up. So here's the other thing. It's like, you know how you can change the chemical structure of the flavor of something if you heat it up? You can do the same thing with color. So if you do a cold infusion or you do a hot infusion, essentially, there will be a difference.
Huh.
So you can experiment with different plants, maybe like, so for example, the lilacs, when I cold infused them for making like lilac water or ice cream or something like that, it didn't change the color of the water. It didn't change the color of the oat milk. But when I heated them up with the water over about it for an hour, it made like a nice kind of yellowy tan color like you see there.
Right.
Oh, you can't see it anymore. Anyway, like I showed you. And then the other plant that I found out was edible is violets. Violets are fantastic. They're absolutely delicious.
Mm-hmm.
And they do change the color of the water dramatically. So when I put them into water, when I was foraging and making, I made truffles with those, and I infused the violets. It just made the most gorgeous colors that I like, just so beautiful. But it shifts. It turns more green, and you can add lemon juice as well to shift a color back to like. You play with the acids. That's another thing. Add vinegar or lemon juice, to, like depending on if you're eating it or just painting with it. Add baking soda. I found that, especially with the cocoa, I use the husks and I boil the husks, and then with the cocoa husks, I get cocoa husks from chocolate makers, and they make gorgeous ink, kind of like the black walnut, but I can shift the color with pH. So if I use some vinegar in it, it goes really yellow. So the more acidic, the more yellow it goes. And then if I add some baking soda, it goes more pink. So you can really play around, like you can get a pretty neat range going on. The other thing that I found, Kate, who has Cedar and Sage, she's a local, like she makes dyes clothes and makes clothes. I took a workshop with her at Hillside last year, and she was doing bundle dyeing with flowers. And that's where you put the flowers on fabric, roll it up and put it in the pot, like string it up. And it was really amazing to see what flowers you wouldn't expect would make bright colors. So that's why I said, like, experiment with like leaves and different things that it doesn't, like indigo, you don't think it makes this like bright blue, but these like kind of normal looking green leaves make this gorgeous color. So it's just, as long as you know the plant is safe to work with, then yeah, just experiment as much as you want.
Awesome. Thanks for that. That's really helpful. And I just, because I see the question in the chat about geraniums, just this week, my daughter was playing with geranium petals, and she got a gorgeous color from them. But then she didn't, we'll try painting with them, because what she tried to do was put a little cloth in it, and it didn't stick in the cloth. But I'm sure it would have on paper had a tone on it. That's
right. Yeah, that's why I've kind of moved into doing, like I'm also a painter, like I work with paintings for a long time. So I'm more drawn to that, I think, than making fabric clothes. The other thing I learned was that as far as like the fabric stuff goes, for some reason, like wool with plant matter, like wool and silk, things, what did she say? It was like animal products will attract the color more or differently. So it also depends on the material. Now the paper that I've been working with is cotton. But I wonder if like you had a paper that's just like wood pulp, or like it'll depend as well on the surface that you're applying the color to.
Right.
It'll like shift differently over time. It'll absorb differently, it'll present differently. So always just kind of thinking about all the different ingredients, I guess, in what you're using to create the painting. Yeah, and I think the biggest thing I've learned is to try not to have like super intense expectations about what you're gonna get. Just kind of try to leave it be whatever it's gonna be, and then once you go, oh yeah, okay, I know geraniums can make this really awesome color. It's like then you kind of have a bit more knowledge about what, if you want to build, say, a representational painting. I've stuck mostly abstract, but I did do just a minute. I didn't do a picture of it, but it's right here. I've been painting landscapes. I know that's not that easy to see. But the landscapes, because I wanted to be representational to a point, I wanted to look like something. You need to have like darks and lights, and you need to kind of work with that. So doing all the experiments, and then like, oh yeah, okay, I know coffee grounds. Coffee grounds make amazing ink. They actually used to be used to make ink regularly. Deep, rich black ink. The other thing that I forgot to mention you can play with is rust. Rust makes like really interesting stuff happen when you're working with painting with it. I have a little tin and I put the coffee ink in there. I didn't put cloves in with it. I just put it in there. I put it in the fridge. It's been in the fridge for almost a year now. And it created a lot of rust on the top of the lid because the whole thing is metal. And I paint with that rust, and I paint with the rust, and I paint with the coffee ink still. And it starts really light, like a bright orange, and then it shifts into almost a black. And so that as you're painting with it, as it's drying, it changes color dramatically. So that can be really fun to play with too. Yeah. None of that's edible though.
I found too, I've done a lot of hammering of petals on paper.
Ooh.
And that's why I was asking about geraniums, because I've never really used it as a as a dye as much as I've been impressing.
Okay.
Right? And a lot of blue flowers, geranium petals, they really hammer really nicely.
Oh.
So you get a shape, and then you can play with that. I just add to it.
Yeah, I haven't tried with hammering. That's really interesting. I've tried, like, I wanted to preserve petals once, so I put them between two pieces of packing tape and then cut around the packing tape, and they kept their color, and they look like these little petals that I can play with to put for making creations. But hammering is really interesting. Is that all the... Did we answer? Does everybody want, like, you guys want to go out and just like play with plants now?
I'm going to start my video so I can show you.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see it, but that's this is hammered forget-me-nots.
Oh, wow. Now,
I just took little a silver pen or something.
Okay.
Into a vase.
Do you hammer it on and then pull the petals off, or are the petals on there?
No, I lay the petals on and then put a paper towel over it.
Oh.
And then I hammer it. I tap it lightly. And actually, I've done these at the enabling garden with people.
Yeah, that's where we were gonna go to collect.
Yeah. And then this one is I've sprinkled rusty bits with salt and vinegar and laid it on paper.
Yes.
And put another paper on top, so I got two of them. But they really work well. I just pressed them down.
Yeah, that's really good.
So I'm really been experimenting with painting with them. Like that's just been much more fun.
Yeah, it's a really, like, you can really experiment like a lot with different plants. And like I really like how you can take it from like just all different kinds of uses by enjoying the scent. You can also pair scent of flowers with other foods. I've been playing a lot with that. Like because flavor is so, this is off topic kind of, but because flavor is so much associated with your sense of smell, it's actually more about your sense of smell than your sense of like what you have going on in your mouth. So if you like are smelling a flower and you eat something, it'll really like work together and create a whole new flavor experience. So that's like there's just a lot you can, and I find irises smell like grapes. Irises are very poisonous. Don't eat the iris, but you can definitely smell the iris and eat something, and it would be like an interesting experience.
Wow, yes. Nice. I'm going to try that.
Yeah, irises, I had to be careful though, because some plants look like other plants, especially when you're foraging for like along a river or something, and it can get sort of confusing to try to identify them. So it's really important to like make sure you've got the right plant.
Mm-hmm. True. Super. That's great.
Yeah.
This is what I'm also doing is an herb thing. I'm setting up pages with watercolor, so I'm wanting using real dyes. Right?
So are
I'm
those
making-
like watercolor paints from the store that you've been using so far?
No, there've been my good ones. But I mean, I just do as I'm finding these, I use the real one, and then you have to mix the color. You have to make a chart, of your color to get it true to the actual color. So I'm going to the actual leaf, right?
Nice.
So I'm making up this lovely herb book. So it's really neat.
It's beautiful.
So I'm trying to get it as true as I can. I've been really busy this spring because there's so many spring colors, spring blooms.
Well, and it's like the more I learn, the more I'm like, this is like nothing. Like there's so many more. Like you asked about geraniums. I'm like, I didn't even think of geraniums. There's like, I didn't know peonies were edible until like a week ago.
That's true. And then I don't think they're edible, but who knows? The nasturtium is nice too. I've never.
Oh, nasturtium's very edible.
Yes, but
they taste like hot, spicy pepper.
I love them. The leaves are great. But I've never dyed with them. I've never made an ink with those yet.
No, I haven't because I eat them too fast.
Yeah, that's good.
But I bet they might make an interesting color. Yeah, I really like basil flowers too. Those are really fun to play with.
Great. I'm just gonna come off. I'm okay with it. Basil, yes, that's a good idea.
Basil flowers are really neat, and arugula flowers look like bee wings.
Oh,
so
neat.
I'm not sure how they would because they're white flowers, so I don't know what the color would be. But like just the shape and like how they look is really interesting. I've still been trying to figure out how to work with those. The other thing is like insects. Like if you find dead insects along when you're out on the river and stuff, try to make ink from them. Like try to make color from them if they're already dead, because there's the concheal bug, like our reds, and that's actually an edible red too, but they use it for like a dyeing really, really bright red, is actually a bug that lives on a cactus. And they take the bugs and then they make it into this bright red. So yeah, there's color everywhere. It's really that Victoria Finley wrote a book. This book, it's called Color by Victoria Finley. If you want to dive into learning, it's the natural history of the palette. So it talks a lot about like where different colors come from. Sometimes it's stones, like a lot. Like I actually follow someone on Instagram that uses a lot of clays, and they're in New Mexico. So there's a lot of like desert earth type things, and they grind it down into a pigment, and then they make the gorgeous paint with them. So if you're out and there's like some stones you want to like try to make some pigment out of, that would be paint though. So that's different than the ink. The plant matter makes the ink more easily because you just need the water. But if you want to make pigment and paint, you need like the water, honey, gum arabic, and you need the muller that you can like work with to make the paint. It's a little bit more complicated, but it's definitely easy enough to research and like figure out how to do it. And it's becoming more and more popular. Like I've painted with traditional oil paints for like since I was a kid. They're really toxic. Like not good to be working with, especially like the vapors, like the smell that comes off of them. So to try to find something that's just really, really not toxic, even edible, and you can make art with it was like amazing. That's exactly what I wanted to find. But why this isn't something that's like everywhere and everybody knows about this and everybody does it, I don't know. It's maybe because it's free, but.
Well, I think Van Gogh used egg white for his temperas.
That's right. Tempera, egg white, eggs were used very regularly, but the pigment was often like they would use lead white, so that was very toxic. there's a green, like Victoria in the book that talks about, there's greens, like Napoleon was poisoned because the green that was used on the walls of the place that he was living made him go insane. There's all kinds of really crazy things, how color has like influenced all kinds of different things.
Well, Van Gogh's yellows probably killed him.
It's possible.
Yeah.
I've like, some of the stuff I've worked with in the past, the smell is like pretty intense, but like if you just get it into your skin, like it goes into your body. So like what you're painting with, you're eating, just like everything else. If you're using like moisturizers, anything like that, it's all going into you.
Yeah, true. Quite right.
I've also read that the Japanese use ashes to make ink.
Oh,
Have you heard of that?
That makes sense. Yeah. I haven't dove into some of like different cultures have all kinds of different interesting things that they've played with to make ink. I can totally believe that though. Like if you're using even a burnt piece of stick or charcoal, you can like that makes really beautiful. And it's actually really easy to make charcoal yourself. You need like willow branches, and then you put them in a little like Altoids type tin, and you kind of put it in the fireplace and let it cook, and then you have like willow charcoal.
Oh, neat. Very interesting.
There's so much, like it's
Yeah.
like once you dive into it, it's like I can make art out of anything.
Yeah, that's right.
yay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. That's terrific. Thank you.
Can
Well,
I
thanks for sharing your work.
Can I show you a picture that Evie's working on here?
Oh,
Beautiful.
And then after we're gonna go out and find some things that she can pound and then paint it on it. That's a little profile of a forget-me-not, and these are some roses here.
Beautiful. Yeah,
Excellent.
that's wonderful. I see a lot of art in the background too.
Those are all hers as well. Yeah.
Wow,
Nice.
good for you.
A lot of art.
And you can get some good contrast too. It's not all just like light colors. Also layering. I found that if like usually with the landscapes, I have to kind of go back into it, let it dry, and then go back into it probably 3 or 4 times to get like some really good contrast.
Nice. Yeah.
So you can, don't think like, oh, I'm just going to do this the one time and then it's done. You can go back, right back into it again with like different colors or the same or whatever you want.
Nicole, can I just share my screen again and show the painting that you did there?
Oh yeah, that's one of the landscapes. And then the ones in the background, okay, so the one at the bottom right, it's a hibiscus tea and then another tea. And so the other thing that's really fun that I've been playing with for a long time is evaporation. The painting in the middle is like a landscape painting, and then the one at the top left is evaporation. So this was a specific kind of cocoa husk that's actually a cross. Anyway, long story, I think it has a large acid content. And when I created the ink, and then I pooled it onto the paper, and I just left it for, I think it took at least a day. It took a long time. But as the water evaporated, it created really beautiful shapes, and the color gradation and all of that kind of worked together. The one, like, there's a different, so basically it's 2 different types of cocoa husks. They made different colors. One's more yellow, one's more pink. I didn't add any vinegar or baking soda or anything. That's just how those ones like came out. So even with different plants, say the iris, for example, you might be able to get like different, totally different colors out of the same plant, but it's slightly different. So yeah, that's why there's just like, you can be like, oh, I read that this plant makes this color, but the particular type of plant that you find might be a little bit different. So it might make a little bit of a different color, or it might be different in its stage of growing, or maybe you boiled it with a different, the water has more calcium in it, or like there's all different kinds of factors that can affect what it's going to look like.
Right.
Okay, and a point to hammering, if you can layer it with a paper over the paper towel, it gives it a little tight. You don't want a hammer mark on it. Also, pansies are really good right now. They hammer really nicely.
They're also edible.
Yes, they're wonderful.
Yeah, they taste like wintergreen.
Yeah.
So Marilyn, do you just use like an ordinary carpenter's hammer?
Yes, I use a small, lady's hammer.
Cool.
For the smaller things, but I'd like to keep it spread out, and not on cement, because then unless you want the cement pattern at the bottom, you gotta be careful what's underneath.
That could be interesting.
That will hammer. If they're too green or mushy, it spreads it, it splashes it, which is kind of fun too. If you go on Pinterest, they have a million variations of that.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I just learned a long time ago to do it, and it's lots of fun. But make sure they're not too mushy. Like a juicy leaf or a juicy petal, it's going to really just splatter. It'll just smash, right?
So yeah,
You'll
make
lose
more
the shape.
abstract.
Lovely, yes, and just be aware it's a lot of experimenting as you do.
Yeah.
So when this COVID thing's over, can we ever meet at the Enabling Garden? Can
Yeah.
we continue playing with this?
Yeah, of course. And it's there's we're on Arthur, so we're along the river, so there's little spots you can access it, and that's anywhere that you can go and find little interesting plants.
No,
But
I mean with you. I mean
diving into research, because there's so many around plant identification is just oh my goodness, it can be really tricky.
No, I just thought it would be fun to get together and do a plein air or something, just for
Oh
fun.
yeah, with natural color.
Right.
If you want to type in your email address, Marilyn, then Nicole could copy.
Oh yeah, perfect. That's a great idea. Let me find here it is. That I really would be interested, because it's more fun to do it with somebody.
Yeah.
You play with it more, right?
And you can kind of so this was really neat, because I can share kind of my experience, and then you have a totally different method that you use that you were able to share as well. So it was extra knowledge. The more people you know, the more people are
feed
doing
on each other.
Okay, let me.
Marilyn.swaby@gmail. And Arlene's daughter too. That would be fun. She could.
Oh yeah, that would be fun.
And you too, Beth.
Yes, I think it's fascinating. I haven't done any of it, but I'm very interested in it.
Yeah, it's this is why I think it can be something that's done in person. Really, what I was gonna do, we could do the foraging. I was gonna talk about it, and then I was gonna see bringing hot thermoses of boiling water and essentially making the plants into a tea, and then painting with the tea. So it's all these words, but ink, tea, in my mind, I say ink when I'm not going to consume it. It's when I'm putting it on paper, and then tea is when I want to drink it. But essentially, it's the same kind of thing. You're just applying heat and liquid to plant matter and then using it for something.
Right. Yeah.
So I was going to see what would happen. It would be faint colors, probably not as strong, because it would be a shorter length of time, but you can get some really bright colors out of just tea.
Oh, for sure.
It stains those cups.
Yep, it's true. I just made one with tea. And also with milk. Have you ever tried milk where you paint it on paper? I didn't find it worked as well on watercolor paper, but book pages or just ordinary paper. You paint it on or draw it on, and then you let it dry and then iron it. And it comes up in those beautiful colors.
Whoa.
So I've made watercolor. Sorry?
What color does it come out?
Oh, I'll show you. Hold on.
We can't see your picture though.
I'm going to have to get it here. Okay, hold on. Yeah, this is really fun. Wait a minute, I'm going to get out of here. Start video. I have an old book that I covered, and I just do samples of things. So now I've just got to find it.
Okay.
Oh, here it is. I was in the Calligraphy Guild, and we just covered old books and then made things.
That's a really good idea for recycling books too.
Yes, that's the color of tea. It's the color of almost like an onion. So I tried it on. I wonder if turning this light off. So I tried it on paper, and then I.
Now, did you make that with onion dye?
No, just no.
Okay.
No.
Oh,
okay. Onion because it looked the color of onion.
Because onion skins make a gorgeous dye.
Yes, it's true. I've done.
It's one of my favorite.
I just thought it looked like onions, so I just did something. But that's neat. So when you iron it, it comes up this color. Really cool.
Yeah.
What about the milk?
That's the milk.
That's the milk.
Milk
Oh,
doesn't have.
okay, I see. I thought you said that was tea. I get it. Mhm.
No, that's milk. So milk comes up with this lovely. I've never experimented with whether it's homo or 1%. I don't think
But
it matters.
what about like, does it smell or anything, or is it because it's dried, it doesn't have a problem?
No, it's doesn't have a smell.
Okay.
Well, milk paint, right? I mean,
Yeah.
corn goes red because of oxen milk, but ox blood milk, right? No, but it's you'll be surprised when you paint it on, it turns just transparent. So when you iron it, you go, ooh,
Yeah, the heat.
look what I got. So
Yeah.
like you forget what you wrote or what you painted on. So that's what that does. Anyway, I'm trying to think. I don't think I have another example. These are onion skins here.
Oh, that's cool.
I made the paint with the onion skin, that one.
Yeah, I did dye fabric with onion skins and it lasted a fairly long time, at least a couple years, but it did fade eventually. But the yellow, I used yellow onions. I haven't tried the red onions, but the color is like this soft, buttery, gorgeous color.
That's on top of gesso. I gessoed a page and then I just played with colors.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so the surface really makes the difference too with how the color kind of like comes out.
Too. Yeah, that's right. This is something unusual we learn in calligraphy. It's painting on or doing tin foil. You can paint on tin foil. So if you have like a grater, you can put it over and make fish scales or like the owl.
Yeah.
And then you just paint it to suit and cut it out.
That's
These are
really
made
neat.
with a glue gun, and then you stamp it with a stamp.
What are those?
Glue gun. You just
Oh, it's
make
just
a gun
glue.
with glue gun, and then you can either paint them or we use gold leaf, and it makes medallions, right?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're fun. Anyway, we got to get together.
Well, you've learned a lot. Like it's like, I know there's just so many like classes and different things out there.
It's so true. It's just fun to take it because, as you say, it works one day and then a different day comes up with something different. Nature's wonderful.
Well, and this is why like we're moving through the seasons. And so I'm kind of starting to like work with, I'm focusing on edible, but then also the paint. And so working with how the plants show up and it's like, oh, right, this plant, how does this plant work? Is this edible? Can I do this with this? And then kind of like moving through. And then it's only what's around in my neighborhood right now. So like apple blossoms are edible. I didn't try to make color with them because I wanted to see apples. But what about like apple seeds? Like, do they make color? Like, there's all kinds of different things.
I wonder about you mentioned seasons and it made me think of the fall. And I wonder about the colored leaves in the fall. I wonder what would happen with them.
Yeah, that would be really interesting to play with.
Yeah.
Like if you made like some with the green leaves, like some color with the green leaves, and then as they change color from the same tree, you try to make it as they change the color. Like that would be really interesting too.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. And the nuts and the berries, they're not like the black walnut, for example, like, oh, that's really, everybody uses that because it's so like obvious, but like berries as well, but they don't, like they'll change color over time pretty easily. I think the black walnut has a bit more of a stronger staying power, but there's a lot of different things. So really, I guess the name of the game is experimentation.
Now, interesting point. I used to work in a museum, interpreter, and they never liked, in the pioneer days, they never liked the color green because what it was a faded black. They used to dye their things with black walnut or whatever. And if it was an older cloak, it was turned green. So they never made the color green because it looked like faded black.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Green is really, really, it can be really tricky. That's why ink with paper is actually like fine, like it's easier. But when I was making dyes, when I was trying to dye fabric and everything like that, it was really hard to get green. The only way I could get green was black beans and turmeric because blue and yellow make green. But I had to mix other colors to try to get a nice green. And black beans and turmeric, and don't cook the black beans. It has to be the black beans just soak in the water. And then you use the soaking water to dye the fabric or the wool or whatever. But that was the only way I could grasp. Like none of the things, like it looks like irises. There was like some green with the iris ink, but to make that translate into like fixing onto fabric would be like a whole other ball game. I found it really, really hard to get green.
Well, so it's okay. They didn't want to use it.
No.
But you're
Yellow's
right.
really easy.
Yellow
Yellow's
is
easy.
green is green. I mean, you get a million shades of green. I learned that doing the herb book, my little flower book, because every leaf has a different type of green. It's really unusual. Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah, there's so much like diversity in like the like colors and everything. So
Yeah,
it'll be slightly different, and then also even over time, it like they'll shift differently over time.
exactly, and that's what nature is. It's all about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of changing. So as long as you kind of shift from like, so when I was studying art, it was about creating something that's going to last the ages, basically. Like it's about longevity. It's about trying to make something, but really, I was like, why? Like, why can't you just appreciate this and enjoy it for the life that it has, and then it goes back and like composts essentially. And like, why does like art have to be these paintings that are supposed to last for so long? It's like Leonardo da Vinci, a lot of his paintings are falling down. There was like Titian, like a lot of artists, they used pigments. They just really like the color at the time, but the pigment's just degrading really quickly. And so I'm like, then embrace that things degrade and they fall apart and they go away, and work with that. And then like, yeah, like it's around money and selling them and all this kind of stuff. But
sure, yeah.
I think it's more important to like create something and then appreciate it at the time.
I want to show you, I paint a lot on tea bags.
Oh, that's really cool.
So these are different tea bags I've done and put them in a book.
Nice. Yeah, that's really neat.
And some of them, this is a lady. Oh, I just love her. I've hardly touched her in, but her face came up beautifully. Anyway, what I wanted to show you too in that is that you can weave with it too. I put
that's interesting.
Tea bags have a really strong fiber, so you can sew on them. You can that's a map. It looked like a map, so
it does look like a map.
Yeah,
that's really neat.
But those are lots of fun, and I don't know if the tannic acid. I looked it up. Somebody said, "Oh, it's tannic acid. It won't keep," but it's not. They're called tannins, not tannic acid.
That's right. Yeah.
So I'm safe.
Yeah, no,
so
it's tannins.
But that's the thing. I lay them all out on my glass thing and let them dry, and they just flatten right out.
Yeah, and that's what the evaporation paintings, like that's how I learned about it. Actually, what I did was I had those little Dixie cups like 20 years ago, and I had little flowers in the little water Dixie cups. And then as the water was evaporating, I noticed along the edge of the cup, it was creating these gorgeous lines. So what I did was I just kept letting the water evaporate till it was gone. And then I undid the cup, and it was like this beautiful scroll looking thing. And I was like, wait, why isn't this being made into art all the time? So then in university, I started to like drop ink and things on paper and just let it evaporate and create these like big pieces with it. And then they wanted you to do something more than that. So I had to pretend I was doing something sciencey. But really, it was like, look at these pretty things nature makes.
No, that's what I like. I celebrate that every day.
Yeah.
That's nice.
And we're in a nice time of year now, but I bet there's even stuff in the winter you can find, like the dried plants. I bet they would make really neat ink too.
Yes, maple keys. I've often wondered. I never did cook up maple keys, but I often wondered.
And there's so many. I bet you could do, because the more plant matter you use, the stronger the color. So that is like part of it. But yeah, you would get tons of those around, and you can definitely experiment.
That's right. And the Chinese maple has a red tiny maple key. It's really cute.
I wonder what the Chinese the red leaves. Like there's some really deep red leaves that could be interesting.
Ooh, they hammer beautifully. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And there's some dark purpley maples, some dark browny purpley maples as well. Those would be. I did.
Yeah.
I wanted to use them for events, but I collected a whole bunch of different leaves last fall and pressed them. I didn't hammer them though, because I kept the actual leaves, but that would be interesting to like create an impression essentially. So you don't have this delicate leaf, but you have this this
Right.
thing that's like about the leaf.
True. That's
Mhm.
true. If you're stuck too out in the woods, you can use the bottom of your shoe. If it's
Just take
flat.
some paper into the woods and like start stomping on things.
You can tap dance on it, right? Yeah.
I wonder
don't
about
remember-
mushrooms too. I bet mushrooms make some really, there's the inky cat mushroom, and there's like different mushrooms that would be really interesting.
Ooh, that would be a nice dark color.
Yeah. Yeah, I found some of those, and like some are edible, some are not edible, but you can also get them at different stages of their life. And then again, if you find them, oh, this isn't, I can't eat this, try stomping on it or boiling it and making it into art.
Sounds like a plan. Okay, we're gonna get together. I'm waiting for your email.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Well, thank you. This is great.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Enjoyed. Yeah, that's super. And you're down on Arthur Street. I'm in the West End, so
Okay.
a different
Yeah, we're near
venue around
downtown.
here.
It's been feeling very weird though, because we don't really go downtown anymore. So it feels like we're in a different place over the last months, but
But you're by the river, and that's nice.
we're right by the river. Yeah.
That's great. Well, good for you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That was terrific. Thanks, Beth.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
thanks,
you.
Beth.
Thank you very much, Nicole, and thanks everybody for coming. This was a really, really interesting and great interactive event. So thanks so much.